Salutations, Utopians. Hope all is well in your world. Such a jam-packed day in sports, from the WNBA finals to NFL Sunday, NBA preseason. Um, and that's what I want to talk about right now. I want to recap that Minnesota versus New York. Today they played against each other, and some new developments came about. And defense. Let's recap the. As you all know, the New York Knicks have a former sports agent in Leon Rose, and he worked some magic in order to get this trade to happen. Um, the Knicks had quite a bit of things to unpack in order for this to work. First and foremost, Julius Randle got rid of CAA agency, which is President Leon Rose of the Knicks. Side venture now, but formerly he used to be a heavyweight agent for that company. Fired him, hired him again. Couldn't seem to come to an agreement with the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson was declared to be out for the per Shams until after this year, so 2025 basically, which sounds crazy, even though it's only 2 months from now, but still, there was always a spacing concern, and DiVincenzo reportedly wasn't happy with his role. And DiVincenzo, at least in preseason, and granted, for what it's worth, no championships are won in preseason, let alone regular season for that matter. But he's looked outstanding. And there was an interesting exchange after the game during the game, DiVincenzo was going back and forth supposedly with Tibbs. But as you know, it's a family. Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson's father, is a former Knick. Tibbs was the assistant coach when Rick Brunson was playing. And it's basically family tied over there, family ran business. And so, unfortunately, you have a situation where, there was some words exchanged. And apparently it does look like DiVincenzo was not happy with his role in New York, did not care much for the Villanova connection, and wants his playing time. And it was a saturated bench. And one of the telltale clues that he wasn't happy was when they went and got Landry Shamet, who sports a similar game. But one of the things he said that I found interesting was that basically that's why that's why things are the way they are, because they let you in control. Ironically, Tibbs was the president and head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2019, which was always kind of bizarre to me because Tibbs never won a championship. For him to be named president just lets you know how desperate Minnesota was. Even now, the gem they got in Tim Connolly, they gave up a king's ransom to get him. It's not very common front offices invest equitable assets to get a front office person. I think it happened one time with the Clippers, with Doc Rivers, getting him from Boston. But that's Danny Ainge. He taxes everybody. And so, now in hindsight, when you realize that, like, Julius Randle was on the Pelicans team that Chris Finch was the assistant coach on, who's now the head coach on the Minnesota Timberwolves. When you realize that the Wolves are a small market team and they needed cap space and keeping flexibility, because there is a battle over ownership, and that Karl Towns contract was negotiated by Leon Rose, who's now the president in New York. So they have a little bit more breathing room to handle a deal like that. Furthermore, it would solve as I alluded to earlier, their front court issues. The trade had to happen, so much so, and sometimes this is one of those rare occasions where there's no need to look back and see who got the last laugh or who won the trade, so to speak, just for the simple fact because it makes too much sense in the moment. The only real thing I'm concerned with losing Randle is the defensive side. And as you all know, defense wins championships. And Randle is the kind of guy you can throw another body at to wear down Giannis. Yeah, you got OG. Yeah, you got Mikal Bridges. But that third guy in Giannis, I mean Julius, is so versatile defensively. But I also, on the topic of the Milwaukee Bucks, would be a hypocrite because I'm on the record for saying that if your big man can space the floor, you can afford to be compromised a little bit defensively. Floor spacing is king. And so when you got a guy like, a Carl Towns, that's what it opens up the floor on so many levels. Now you got four threats to be able to score from anywhere. I don't know who that fifth piece is that's going to be plugged in. I got another post, theoretically, though, what the Knicks should do with Mitchell Robinson, who's an elite defensive big, rim runner, but ultimately will probably be moved, and he's on a very friendly $60 million deal. But for whatever people want to say, he might be a little soft, he's a finesse player, etc., etc. You can live with that when you have a big man who can space the floor the way Karl Towns can do. And what I think this trade does for him, especially sending him home, and that idea of like 9-10 years of being with one franchise and to be moved off and scapegoated to a degree, even though I believe Tim Connolly did everything he could, hence why he made such a hefty investment in Rudy Gobert. Like, let me take the responsibility of being the paint enforcer out of his hands and out of his mind so he can just be his natural self. And obviously they were slower. Karl Towns at the 5 is one of the more athletic bigs. Karl Towns at the 4, and they makes your team instantly slower, which you can't have. Conversely, though, I still don't like either, though, with that being said, the idea of Mikal Bridges being a power forward. This notion of like being an undersized league and small ball league, that's a small ball league, cool. But don't get it misconstrued. It's not going to win you a championship. You still have to have production in a traditional lineup. And so you can play that small ball if you want, but you're going to find out quickly that when it's really stepping time, like for instance, why did the Mavs get to the championship? I know the romantic, sexy pick thing is to be like, oh, Luka and Kyrie took it to another level. No, they got to run on the mill on big men, which is, I'm the only person who broke down basketball that made this comparison to when they won the championship with Tyson Chandler and Brandon Haywood. I said, this can instantly move them to a threat into being in the finals, when originally I said their championship is getting out the first round against a team like the Clippers. But when you got Lively and Gafford, that is a game changer. They had no business being able to acquire Gafford for what they did. But I said the same thing about Bradley Beal going to Phoenix, and come to find out, Washington's really actually may have won the trade. They got up out of that contract, and I don't remember exactly what they got in return off the top of my head, because that's not what this conversation is about. But at the end of the day, that is what is the league now. 2 quality bigs. Phoenix got Plumlee and Yusuf Nurkic to throw at yours truly, Jokic, 3-time MVP. You have to have a stable of bigs to throw, preferably 2 deep. And so that is where, things are going to get interesting, because, also, Jericho Sims is a rim runner just like Mitchell Robinson. He's younger, he's strong, he's a lot more strong. He sees him better in the strength department. I know Mitchell bulked up, but he's not of the magnitude of a young 20-something-year-old Jericho Sims, who can literally touch the top of the backboard, literally stares down at the rim. Dwight Howard type leaping ability in Orlando type. But you have to have 2 quality bigs, and so the Knicks got that, and they have surplus. They're going to have equitable assets to continue to try to figure out how they're going to plug the floor. Precious Achiuwa is going to be a key piece. But the bigger thing is, right now, I think he can have like a Naz Reid type renaissance. He looked very aggressive tonight, ironically, against Naz Reid. But, against the Timberwolves. They weren't matched up with each other. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the trade was necessary. my initial reaction first time seeing the trade, I was more disappointed. I really liked what I seen in the small sample size from Randall, but unless Randall was going to play the five, which Tibbs for some reason just was opposed to vehemently, and because right now, how nice would it have been to have Obi Toppin? But Obi Toppin called out Tibbs the same way that DiVincenzo did. So it kind of and there's casualties when you're going through a roster overhaul. Look, Leon Rose is here for one reason: to get the Knicks to the championship, to win a chip. And if this doesn't happen, it's an epic fail because that young nucleus of Quickly, Barrett, Obi, Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, that would have been fine. I tell people all the time, you don't have to win chips. And ironically, we are in the Basketball Enshrinement Hall of Fame. I love to use Vince Carter as an example. As a kid, I knew Vince Carter wasn't going to win a championship. I knew he doesn't play championship type of basketball. It's like Russ. It's a polarizing game of the style of play they play. It's like, what is this? This is amazing. Lightning in a bottle. They go hard. They do, the high acrobatic plays. But it's not going to win you a chip. But you'd walk away and not even ask yourself when you watch Vince Carter, did they win the game? Did Toronto win the game? No, he's one of those rare players that you watch and I'm just a fan of the way, I just love the highlights. You'll pay to watch that in person. Every team doesn't have to win a championship to be entertaining. I always talk about Kenny Atkinson, D'Angelo Russell, Brooklyn Nets. They were a fun, up-tempo team. You and the fellas go out on a Friday night, get you a pizza, your college buddies, get you some pizza, a beer, and go watch the game. Or you take your girlfriend out, whatever. But you whatever you do, couples night. They were a fun team to watch, though. Up tempo, great time, And you didn't go, oh, they're gonna win a chip, but it was entertaining. You're gonna get some highlights that you can go home and talk about. And where was I that night? That game. Remember, same night, D'Angelo threw that lob to Karras, and Karras threw the lob to Jared Allen, and they flushed it. It was amazing, right? Shit like that. And that's kind of what the Knicks could have been. You didn't need Barrett and them to win you a championship. They would have been fine with a second round exit. But now you go and you get OG Anunoby. You bring in Mikal Bridges. You got Jalen Brunson over Tyrese Halliburton in the draft. Okay, it's put up or shut up time then. You had Obi Toppin doing East Bay jams in the middle of the game. You said no. And you practically handed them to the Pacers, and you handed, Halliburton to the Pacers. So this obviously, and again, I respect all the moves they've done. I don't really like talking on the Knicks because clearly there's some high level shit going on, and I don't want those problems. You know what I mean? It's cool. I'm glad they did what they did. It is the best move. Karl Towns was the best move, the best player you could have possibly got. Giannis ain't going nowhere. Joel Embiid ain't going nowhere. This was the best move for the team. And then I also want to talk from a chemistry on the night of the, again, Hall of Fame enshrinement, 2004 Pistons team. They didn't, don't get me wrong. Chauncey Billups is one of the greatest leaders of all time. Ben Wallace, greatest defenders. Rasheed Wallace, top 5 power forward. Tayshaun Prince, a rare 4-year institution player, played for the established, Kentucky. But back when Kentucky was really like playing basketball, not an NBA pipeline, but also really took its pride in playing fundamental basketball, right? And then Rip Hamilton, he had battles against Kobe in high school, but none of them were like viewed as, except for Rasheed perhaps, and Ben Wallace didn't emerge really until he came to Detroit. He was on the bench, stuck at the end of the bench with the Wizards and the Magic. He didn't really become who he was until he got to Detroit. Rasheed Wallace had some respect in the league, but he was viewed as a hothead, so they were able to get him on the low. He lasted one day in Atlanta before they sent him over there. People joke around that jersey's worth a lot, that Atlanta jersey. I think he was there 24 hours and he got rerouted. So, that team, though, from a brotherhood and chemistry standpoint, chemistry is so underrated, right? And that Pistons team, the spirit of that team shows you that money can't buy. Why do you think in movies they do so bad when you have all these big names? Same thing in pro sport. Yankees have been notorious. The Redskins back in the day, when the Dan Snyder, Dana Stubblefield, Mark Carrier offseason paid all this money for Bruce Smith. They got everybody you could imagine, and they still fell short because money can't buy chemistry. That's a spiritual thing. That's a group thing. That's a camaraderie and brotherhood. You play for the next man. That's a different type of mentality that few teams can embody, especially as we get, in the marketing dollar, the budget is getting so astronomical. Your chance at direct pipeline to generational wealth, what Jalen Brunson did though, with that contract friend team friendly deal he did, it really set a tone in that locker room. And when you see that blow up, I'm not one of those people that go, oh, if you had a fallout with someone, you were always enemies just waiting to fall out. No, I don't agree with that notion. Sometimes we just, in human beings, we can be in our own heads, and we can, someone doesn't even mean to be offensive or do something rude, and you took it as that, and you didn't, rather than express what was the problem and put it on the table, now you're bottling animosity. They don't even know. There's a lot of things. Why I'm saying this is that boil over, you can tell, like, was we tolerate each other, and then when they finally, that trade was the final straw where we can finally, I don't gotta be cool with you no more, so I'm gonna let you know. You know what I mean? I don't give a damn, right? Do I think Jalen's father had no business? He kind of tried to step in. He's in his enforcer role, kind of, with Udonis, like that Udonis Haslem role with Miami. That's who Rick Brunson is for the Knicks. They've done him so good. They've done him such a solid, his family, and so they have no choice but to want to do well for him and do right by him. But he has no choice but to want to be protective of him. It's obvious. Now, choice is not the right word to use, but you get what I'm saying. So ultimately, he put his hand in DiVincenzo's face. I mean, most grown men, that's code on the word on the road is like, you put your hand up. No, that's grounds to get punched. I'm just being honest. But that boil over was, that's deep love right there. And what could have been, and DiVincenzo was not the problem. Randall's not the problem. Back to the chemistry discussion though. Those guys carry a 90s mentality similar to Anthony Edwards. Why he's so dominant in this era. He's got the physicality, the physique, the mindset, and he talks like he's from the 90s. Well, Randall is too. People forget Randall entered the league when Kobe was still playing. DiVincenzo's spicy like them 90s, 80s dudes. So they fit better over there. Those are dogs. Cat is a KD, Jalen Brunson type, Mikal Bridges. We're going to do our job, but I don't need to carry it on me like I'm that dude. Like, I don't have to have that hostility and that frustration and that aggression. We just do it. Them guys, that's their calling card. They want you to know on top of that, not only can I hoop, I'm not to be played with. I'm not going for none of it. Jalen Brunson and all them, they play ball. They just hoop. They're going to play at a high level and go home. So that's a better atmosphere for Cat, who at times was getting mocked by Ant. And then, like I said, going back to what I originally was pointing out with Connolly, bringing a Gobert, feeling maybe we got to get a little, it got awkward. Naz Reid was outperforming him sometimes down the stretch. Let's just call a spade a spade. So it worked out for everybody. Cooler heads prevailed. It was a good trade for everyone. Everything's just going to boil down to path, health. That's it. It's a new set of problems. You know what I mean? Who they're going to put at the 4 now? Randall's gone, but you got this 5. It's a better set of problems. And it's they definitely did improve. And with, clear mind now, kudos to the Knicks. Definitely kudos to the Wolves. They've got flexibility. They got more weapons around Ant. That was a big problem. People were drawing comparisons to '08 LeBron in Cleveland, how he had no second, third options. Now they got draft rookies in there looking good. You got you got 2 scorers who are capable of giving you 15 to 20. It's, and I don't know where this idea that Randall's going to clash with Edwards. I don't believe that at all. He's a team guy. He's going to be around in a more environment that's like him, and he's back on the West Coast. It's great for everyone. Great job to both sides. Tim Connolly, elite. Leon Rose, elite. Everyone's doing their job. It's one of the rare times where it was a win-win. All right, Utopians, I'll try to do better next time. Global, out.